This video looks at gear that has helped me make money and will likely help you too. So let's get into it. Number 1. The 50mm prime lens. It doesn't matter if you're using a full frame, crop sensor or micro four thirds system, a 50mm prime will be worth every bit of your investment. You can get them really cheap and they provide a ton of value for the money. For reference, I was using a Canon EF 50mm adapted to a speed booster onto my Panasonic GH5 and that worked extremely well. For the price, you just couldn't get any better. Being able to spend under $100 to get a great looking focal length with a large aperture is just something you cannot pass by. And after I completed some client videos, I was able to afford a native 50mm prime for the GH5, aka the 25mm 1.7, and also get a 50mm 1.8 L mount for my Panasonic S1. They are both seriously useful and I've used them a ton, so much that they've already paid themselves off. For me personally, I have used 50mm on personal projects, client videos and short films. They are just a focal length that works so well in so many different scenarios. And you may not think this, but actually having to move yourself to frame the subject correctly with this fixed focal length is really a bonus. And usually you'll get a better composition because of it. For example, look at these car event photos I took. This is all fixed at 50mm and I was able to get some really cool shots. And also, if you have the budget to squeeze, I'd recommend going for vintage 50mm primes. For example, one that you can get that always provides really good results is the Canon FD 1.8. If you can find it really cheap, then I would just get it. Get a cheap speed booster or adapter if you need it, and you will have a ton of fun. Number 2, zoom lenses. Now, these also get used a lot, but they are a much higher price tag. The reason I've added it is due to the sheer amount of use it has. Heck, I'm using one right now to shoot this video. If you get something like a Sigma 24-70 2.8 used, they are around $700 to $1,000, depending on the condition. You can also get the Tamron 24-70 2.8, which is a little cheaper, has a slightly lower image quality, but I personally think it's still worth the price. What you're getting is a jack of all trades, something that can be used in nearly every single scenario. And one of the main benefits for pretty much all zoom lenses is that you can use them in so many different applications. Like personally, I have used it for personal projects. I have used it for some films, not all the films I've been a part of, but I've used it pretty much every single time I've been on a client shoot. What I'll usually do is have the zoom on the A camera and have the fixed 50mm on the B camera. Also, zoom lenses seem to be more common to have image stabilization inbuilt. Primes do definitely have it, but they are usually more uncommon and even more expensive. Number 3, external camera monitor. I held off buying a monitor for years, but when I eventually got it, I realized I should have had it way earlier. What this does is it allows you to see what is projected from the camera at a much larger size. And also, if you get something like an Atmos Ninja 5, you are able to output raw footage onto an SSD from the camera. If the camera allows it, of course. I don't have any expensive monitors, I just have a Neewer F200, which is about $140. And this just does what I need for my circumstances. But the simple ability to check framing and focus makes a massive difference compared to using the camera's LCD. Now with me, I don't even have the luxury of a flip screen because I'm using a Panasonic S1 which doesn't even have it. So if I show you, for example, my setup, I'll just grab my GH5. So here we've got the setup right here with the camera, the S1, and then up here we've got the field monitor, and you can see that the camera is actually covering the frame. It's a little bit delayed, but I don't really have that much of an issue for the price. Now we can move it over so I'm not actually showing my camera in frame too much, but what I like about this one specifically is that it is 7-inch. Because if I had a 5-inch one, it would make it a little bit more difficult to see in focus, but if you have it close enough, it doesn't make too much of a difference. Now, saying that, I'm at a 24mm focal length, and if I was at a 50mm, for example, I would definitely need the 7-inch over the 5-inch. Another thing is that the LCD on your camera usually isn't as bright as the field monitor. So if you're in outside conditions, I would recommend using the monitor to be able to see your framing easier. Number 4, C-stands. These are perfect for holding lights, camera, and other equipment you need to stabilize. They are made out of heavy duty steel, and it means they are durable to pretty much any punishment you give them, even a really high payload. And with a ton of different adjustable arms and clamps, they can be used in a wide variety of different scenarios. So for example, today I'm using C-stands to actually hold my audio and lighting equipment. So we've got the bottom of the C-stand right here with the sandbag. This goes up into a gobo head, and then it goes into a boom support holder, into the boom, and then with the microphone right here. Then we've also got the light, which is absolutely massive. It's 120 centimeters. I think it's too big actually, but it holds it perfectly on the C-stand. This is also on a sandbag, and it just does the job so well. And what you'll find is that you'll actually use them way more than you anticipated. And if you're a person who wants gear that doesn't depreciate, then these are perfect. Because these are made mainly out of stainless steel, there's no reason for them to lose value. What you'll find is that you may have them for 5 or so years, and you can sell them for pretty much the same amount you paid for them. So if you want to make your sets much more safer and practical, then I can definitely recommend C-stands. Number 5, LED light panels. They are cheap to buy, cheap to run, and exceptionally bright. And what you'll find is that you can use them in pretty much every scenario you throw at it. So with mine, for example, I've got the Neewer 660 LED RGBs, and these can be battery powered. So it means if I'm doing some personal projects, short films, or even client work, they just work across the board. They are extremely portable and can be set up in seconds. Most brands and variants will give you the ability to go from different Kelvin numbers. For example, mine go from 3200 to 5600, and more expensive options may even have a wider range. And there are also many models that come with an RGB setting, so the full RGB color gamut is available. I've got this with my 660 LED RGBs, so it means I can use one of the panels as an accent light to change the mood. I've done it with past YouTube videos, for example with my Logitech G920 review on the Aussie Gamer channel. If you want that sort of background, you can do it. They also commonly have softbox accessories that you can slide over the top of the panel. They are much lighter form factor than, for example, a cob light, meaning that you can put them anywhere and get soft diffused light. Now, I can recommend the Neewer 660 LEDs, which can be found for around $200. And if you splash a little more cash, around $50 to $100 more, you can get the RGB variants. And with the films I've been a part of recently, these lights have been the main key in fill. Because they've been able to be moved very quickly, it means that we've been able to bang through the scenes and we can go through the film much faster than if we were to use, for example, cob lights. Now, for me personally, I have made my money back on these tenfold. So if you do some sort of work similar to me and you want to get some lights, these are the ones you go for. They just work awesome. So if you're wanting something that is durable, light, doesn't make much noise because it doesn't have any fans, then this is the way to go. Number 6. Tripod. This is an essential piece of gear, and I would recommend you get it first before anything else on this list. Now, if you don't have a ton of money to spend, then I can definitely recommend some bulky aluminum tripods. For example, I've got one from Neewer. I've had it for nearly 2 years and it has done the job really well. It is starting to fall apart a little bit right now, but for what it's worth, I think I've got a lot of value out of it. Included in its price is a fluid drag head system, and this part of the tripod is actually probably the thing that is lasting the longest. It still feels like brand new after using it for multiple years, so if you're worried about that failing first, you don't have to. And if you have more money to spend, then definitely go for a carbon fiber Manfrotto tripod. There's definitely nothing wrong with them, and they will last for years on end. Number 7. Camera shoulder rig. Now, I haven't used a shoulder rig for most of my filmmaking life. I personally thought a gimbal could be used instead and it would solve all of my problems. And I was dead wrong. Then I got the opportunity to work on a short film that had a Blackmagic 6K Pro on a shoulder rig. And after using it, I realized I needed one myself. I think that's one of my biggest regrets, not getting a shoulder rig earlier, because it's not like handheld, you've got much more control, and it looks way more dynamic than on a gimbal. After using that 6K Pro setup, I decided to use my mirrorless cameras on a shoulder rig, and I got pretty much the same results. It looked so smooth, and the best thing is it wasn't like a gimbal due to the setup times. You could get it on in seconds instead of having to balance the gimbal, which takes minutes. And if you do get a shoulder rig, you can rig it out with different accessories such as a follow focus system, barn doors, and also a top handle. Now you don't have to get the more expensive versions like the tilter or small rig versions. I myself got a Neewer variant, which was about $60 in its bare bones variant, and it does pretty much the same thing, and it feels still really nice to use. So if you want something that's easier to set up than a gimbal and gives in some ways a better look, then I'd recommend getting it. Number 8. Top handle. This is the cheapest one on this list, and in some ways the best. The main purpose of this is to hold camera accessories, but it also has a sneaky little party trick. If you hold it correctly with the palm of your hand under the handle, you can remove all the jittery footage that you would usually see with handheld. This gives a similar look to the shoulder rig, but is in a much smaller form factor. So if your camera has a hot shoe mount on top, which most DSLRs and mirrorless cameras do, you can slot it in and you will only see positive results. For example, with the model I own from a brand called Nicewire Rig, this has 4 cold shoe mounts and a ton of 1/4 and 3/8 threads. And the best thing of all is that top handles can usually be found for around $30. So there you go, the best gear investments for filmmakers that make money. From the 50mm prime lens to the top handle, these pieces of equipment will help you take your work to the next level and ensure that you see a return on your investment. If you want to check out my last video where I shot 3 short films in 3 weeks, check out this video right here. If you like this content, then make sure to subscribe to my channel. It helps out a bunch. I'll see you in the next video, and peace.